Why, hello, YouTube. BalorMage here, and this you see in the background is the, finished version of my budget poison Pathfinder. Now, I say finished like that because the idea of this was to keep the budget under 10x, and we did that. And we did that in what I think is a reliable way. We only bought things that had, 50 to 100 of the items that I was looking for up for sale for an appropriate price. So I didn't pick out diamonds that were underpriced. I didn't craft a bunch of things and get lucky. This cost me 10x from head to toe, and I could copy it 5 times in a row for 10x from head to toe and have it come out almost exactly the same. I bought very average things and just tried to figure out the best way to get everything working. Now, the reason we say finished is because it's literally only a 10x build, and I could invest 50x into this in a heartbeat, and it will just keep getting better and better. But the point was to get it as cheap as it could and have it clearing tier 16 maps quite comfortably. Now, I actually forgot to record. We did do some bosses on this. I did the blue side boss, who I can't remember the name of. It went okay. It's doable if you're a decent player. You don't take a lot of damage, but the recovery rate isn't super high either when you're not getting hit. You're almost immortal while mapping, but recovery is just medium for bossing right now. I do think that's a sort of the nature of what I had to do with a 10x budget, was just I had to give up something, and if I could at a decent rate clear my tier 16 juiced maps with things in them, but bossing was a bit iffy and I had to use 2 or 3 portals, that was just where I thought was acceptable. Obviously, the more you put into it, the more powerful it'll get. If you invest 20x instead, you'll probably start doing bosses super comfortably. But 10x was a very tight budget for me. I'm quite used to doing 100 200x builds, or at least 50. A few leagues back I did a bunch of 20x builds as a project, and even those I found a little difficult because I'm used to having a lot of money, so I'm not used to having to shoestring it. And then we decided to see if we could go with half, and I'm honestly surprised with how well you can do with quite a tight budget. So moving over, boom. This is the finished character. We did end up going with Lightning Strike. We tried out a bunch of different skills. Lightning Strike was just by far the best for mapping, and even really for just comfort and ease of use. While Lightning Strike exists, and that's really nice. Now you will notice we're wearing a Blizzard crown, but it was a very cheap Blizzard crown. We did throw greed essences on it. It didn't need the accuracy roll. You can see we did not get lucky at all with it. It is just a normal Blizzard crown. We threw a greed essence on until we got 1 resist and room to craft duration of ailments. That's all we looked for. We picked up a not fantastic roll, Ungles that had additional curse already on it from trade. That was 50C at the time, and there were 111 for sale that were under an X. So I thought that was an acceptable thing to buy. Ring with the spare on hit is really not special. It doesn't even have resistances. We did have to get some resistance and int on 1 ring. That was fine. I did roll this myself. Now I bought the gloves for 12C, and they had pierce on them, but I had to roll the strike nearby on it. Which is fine. Those are really cheap and not very hard to hit. I didn't try to elevate them. We're just trying to get the basic tier with the lowest tier. I don't even know what you call them. The lowest tier Ichors and Embers. Yeah, and the lowest tier Ichor and Ember to just to get those things. Same thing here. I used the lowest tier Ichors and Embers. We didn't up them at all. We didn't conflict them. The chest itself is very cheap before I bought it. However, it is important that we get that flash charges gain every 3 seconds. The Malevolence Aura effect, not as important. You can do without that. Flask charges gained every 3 seconds is pretty important if you want to keep all of your flasks up permanently. In order to keep all of my flasks up permanently, even in a bossing encounter, right? Because while mapping, these go off like crazy. We gain so many charges when we get hit. They go off like crazy. It's a whole recovery rate. Every single time we use a flask or the flask triggers automatically, we gain 6% of our life, which is great. It means while mapping, super tanky, super immortal. Great. While bossing, we don't have a life flask, so these need to keep going off to give us enough life recovery. So we also need uptime because I use them for resistances. It made gearing this character super easy, like way cheaper than it should be to gear these characters, because I have 3 elemental flasks on, and those all count as resistances. So if you look around at my gear, there's barely any resistance on any of it. And I've still managed 32 chaos resistance, and we've got quite a good amount of armor. Like everything is quite easy to gear when you do that, but we have had to use the 3 charges there, the 1 charge on my chest, and also utility flasks gain 1 charge every 3 seconds here. Now, in an ideal world, I would like that to be flask effect, because flask effect is really good. But to do that, I really need 2 flask charges every 3 seconds on my chest, and that suddenly ups the price of the build a lot. It would be quite strong, but it ups the price of the build a lot. If I got a few more levels, or if I got the Pierce enchant, I could drop the extra Pierce off the tree. You can see we've got 2 Pierce there, and I've actually taken 3 Pierce on the tree. Fantastic world for me would be Lightning Strike pierces targets as a helm enchant, and then I would drop those, and with those and like 1 or 2 extra levels, I could actually get down here and get some flask duration, less flask charges used, and flask duration here, and then a second flask mastery, which means I could get more duration, less charges used, which is the biggest one, remove maim, remove hinder, and I could get my 10% effective flasks. That would be really cool. I'd like that. But there's also a ton of other things you can do. There's a ton more damage. There's more damage to get here. I still haven't even got the crit wheel. There's tons more damage everywhere. There's so much I can pick up right now. So yeah, this is the build. What I will say, by the way, when people are looking at this, this is actually a relatively expensive Watcher's Eye. But only because it's a double Watcher's Eye that's Precision Malevolence, and that's just because I already had that in my stash, but I'm not running Precision. So it's actually just Malevolence, deal damage faster Watcher's Eye. It's 50 cows. It is not whatever this one was, because I'm not actually, they don't even exist apparently. They were much more expensive, but I'm literally not running Precision. That's not part of the build. It's just a Watcher's Eye I already have to stop me doing a trade, but it is just damaging ailments, inflict damage faster. That's all I'm using on that. The Thread of Hope was pretty meaningful. You can see it's very, very efficient because we get the elusive effect, and we get that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and it's just a lot of points. I also found that I needed this because I dropped claws. I ended up having to drop claws and go with one of these daggers. Super important. Actually mandatory. Literally wouldn't bother running the build without it at this point. I actually bought this weapon for, I think, 40 chaos. And the way I looked for it was I just looked for total DPS. I looked for total DPS and I tried to get a decent attack speed one, because all damage from hits with this weapon can poison. So that means it doesn't matter what kind of damage type it is, it will poison. And that's also what enables the Blizzard Crown to work, because that's a bunch of flat damage added to my weapon. So that's all the important stuff out of the way. Moving over to the path of building. This is somewhat important. So enable Lightning Strike, count 2. Now this is sort of the lazy way to stop us doing manual math, because you will hit once with the projectiles of Lightning Strike and once with the melee hit of Lightning Strike, but you can't tell path of building that. So if you go to the melee hit and hit twice, it says 8.3. If you go to the projectile and hit twice, it says 7.5. So it's actually technically somewhere in the middle between them. But I just leave it on the weaker one because I'm trying to be as conservative as possible. You do have a Val Lightning Strike that you can pop for burst DPS, which will bring you up to 11. However, we also have a Focus Craft that we can proc for single target. It is on our Blizzard Crown, 133% increased duration. I did not tick that in the path of building. So there is, theoretically, you tick that, it goes up to 12 during the effect of that focus. And then if you put your Val Lightning Strike on the same time, you're doing 18 mil, theoretically. Now, the reason I say theoretically is because it will not feel like you're doing 18 million DPS. It's theoretical because with everything ticked, our poison duration is 5 seconds with a maximum poison stack of 23 with everything ticked. That means for 5 full seconds, you would have to be attacking the boss without moving in a perfect scenario. And that, if you could stand still and attack the boss for 5 full seconds with everything up, you would be doing 18 million. That's not very reasonable. That's some path of building warrior shit. So what I've done to counter that is I have just left focus off, and I have just left where to go? There it is. And I've just left Val Lightning Strike off, and I've just called it 7.5 mil. Now, the roundup without focus on only takes 3 seconds instead of 5 seconds, and I haven't accounted for being able to press the focus button, and I haven't accounted for being able to press the Val Lightning Strike button. But that is, it's also worth noting that while clearing a map, not while bossing, but while clearing a map, it won't necessarily feel like 7.5 either, because it is still 3 seconds ramp up time to get to that amount of damage. So while running around clearing a map, it feels in game more like about 3 mil, which is still enough to clear. You saw it clearing comfortably. It felt okay, but it's not ridiculously special because it's a poison build. The numbers, if you were just doing a straight lightning strike elemental damage with 7.5 mil, it would feel like you were doing more damage, and it's because you're doing that damage up front. And for poison, we have to ramp up to that damage. So otherwise, super fun build. It was very fun to play, but lightning strike itself, not really for me. I don't really seem to like melee. I don't really seem to like melee abilities, so I've moved on from it already. Plus, this is about as far as I could take it in a 10x budget. So that's all. The last thing worth mentioning is that the forbidden jewels that I have used, you do not have to copy them. You can take whatever is the cheapest set, either Master Surgeon, Master Toxis, Nature's Reprisal, or Nature's Boon. Any of them is fine. You can't take Nature's Adrenaline because you need to path through it anyway to get to Master Surgeon. So whatever is the cheapest set of those, that's the one you should buy. Hopefully they don't go up in price too much. Right, if you made it all the way to the end, please do not forget to like the video, comment in the description, because that's how we get paid from the YouTube algorithm gods. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I will see everybody later.